I'm recording this shiur on the night of the Shloshim, so it's been 30 days since Amanda's Patira um, and her burial. And I want to talk tonight about a mitzvah that was very dear to Amanda, which was Mayim Shalanu. Well, making of challah, yes, always making of matzah as well. Um, and so I think to start this, I want to give a little bit of background as to how we got into making matzah. Um, from my early days in learning, um, I wanted to make my own matzah. I always liked the idea, and I had a Rav who taught me the ins and outs of that. And so, going back, I think about 9, 10 years, maybe more. Yeah, 10 years. Um, Amanda and I started making matzah, and really, what got her into it initially was the price. Um, because well, matzah at the dollar was really low to the shekel at the time, and matzah prices had soared to something like 150, 200 shekel a kilo for matzah, and you can legitimately at that time you could legitimately buy a kilo of matzah flour, like the actual shmora flour, for about 5 shekels a kilo. So that was what initially convinced her to take the leap, because it was a bit of an expense to start up, getting the ovens and everything like that that we needed. Um, However, once we did it, she really got into it. Um, and then uh, the first year, I went and took Mayim Shalano myself, and then every year after that, for I think about 2 years, um, it became like a family hike in Engedi to get the water. And then one year we couldn't go to Engedi, and I got somebody to take me to Ein Sataf, and the water there was so much better. And so then the following year, um, the person who had been our transportation, or had been my transportation to Ein Sataf, couldn't do it, and she met up with some friends, a lady friend, who took her uh, if we would show them how we made matzah. And so then from that point on, Mayim Shalanu really became Amanda's thing. And what she really got into it, so let me explain what Mayim Shalanu is, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth from the spiritual aspects of it, which is what I want to kind of hit tonight. And so, in the Shulchan Aruch, in which is the Code of Jewish Law, in Orach Chaim, Simin Tav Nun Hey, it says, "In Lisin Shelo b'mayim shalanu, בין שהם מי בורות או מעיינות, בין שהם מי נהרות, ושואבים אותם מבעוד יום, או בין ההשמשות, ואין לשין בהן עד שיעבור הלילה כולה." Okay, and so I'll read that in English, or I'll translate the English. Is we only need with water that rested overnight. Whether it is from wells and springs or from rivers, we draw the water when it is still day or twilight, and we do not need with it until the whole night has passed. Okay, so there's this, and we can get into the reasons why halakhically that's done. It's essentially so that the water doesn't impart energy into the bread and make the dough chametz faster, which is ferment. Doesn't make the dough ferment faster. Um, However, I think one of the things that really clicked with Amanda in the basic, uh, so we're gonna go a little deeper. I would call this like somewhere between Chassidut Kabbalah. Is in Judaism, or in the uh, the Sod aspect of understanding the Chagim, we have two parts of the year. We have two sets of Chagim. One that technically are kind of like in the fall, and one set that is in the spring. And so we have the year then is in Judaism or in this thought is split in two, and one of them is uh, a tikkun of the masculine aspect, and one of them, so like all winter from the from Yom Kippur until Pesach Shavuot, we're doing a tikkun on the masculine aspect. Then all summer we're doing a tikkun on the feminine aspect. Okay, um, and so where does so like from so what happens is from say Yom Kippur, the whole winter is spent building toward this great event, which is Pesach Shavuot. Okay, and then from Shavuot, the whole summer is spent building toward um, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Okay, and so really, when you finish the Tikkun, you go to a higher level. Um, is the idea. And so here, I'll read this piece from. I'm reading from a sefer called Divrei Shalom, uh, and it is a uh, commentary on the Shulchan Aruch based on the minhag of Yeshivat Beit El, which is a Yeshivat Mekubalim. Okay, and so just gonna go to the Maskana here at the end. It says, הלכה סוד גדול של המים שלנו שבהם אופים המצה שהם סוד המוקין הקרויים מים המגדלים את האילן והוא נמשך לפרצוף. Okay, so here's the thing. So this is the sod, the great secret um, of Mayim Shalanu. They are in with which we bake the matzah. They are the secret of the mochin, the brains, so to speak, um, that we call Mayim Migdalim. And so it says v'hol nimshach lepatzuf leah. So that's the feminine aspect, right? So what happens when we do the tikkun of um, Pesach and Shavuot is not only do we finish building the masculine aspect, but from that flows out the feminine aspect. As we finish one, we go to a higher level and start the next. And so this mitzvah of which has to happen before Pesach even begins is the according to what is written right here is the key to the whole tikkun of Shavuot, of Pesach Shavuot, and then what will of all the work we'll do with tefillot during the summer until we come to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in the fall. Um, and sorry. Um, so Amanda really latched onto this as um, not just like, oh, this is a cool spiritual thing that I can do, but again, for her, everything eventually came back to family, um, and and being involved both in the physical and the spiritual aspects of the family. Um, and so for her, she saw this as her way, going every year to uh, a Mayan in Ein, well, typically in Ein Sataf, and drawing water. Even through all of her cancer struggles, she would manage to get out there and draw water. Um, that became her way of helping the family in a very like while in a very practical sense grow and achieve things spiritually. Um, because this one mitzvah, which seems to a certain extent so insignificant, right? Unless you're making your own matzah, you've probably never done, you've never actively done Mayim Shalanu. Um, but when you look at it, it's this mitzvah that actually brings about everything that we're trying to accomplish spiritually during during the entire Pesach Shavuot season. So, like essentially all of like what we're trying to accomplish spiritually through the entire Seder and the Sfirat Omer and then Shavuot, which is one of the highest levels spiritually we reach. Like the morning of Shavuot and Ne'ilah of Yom Kippur are equivalent, are the two high points of uh, our spiritual journey each year. And the in at least in uh, Shacharit of Shavuot, that's dependent upon reaching that high point is dependent upon the mitzvah of Mayim Shalanu. Okay, and so he goes on and says here, ומכאן יתבונן הלומד כמה גדולה מעלת המים שלנו, שיש לשואב אותם בשמחה ובחדות של הקדושה, בעיכלו ורקימו, בכוונה ומחשבה טהורה, כדת מה לעשות. From here, the learner will observe how great um, is the malat, um, the level of Mayim Shalanu that they draw that sheyesh l'shoevotam, so that when they draw it should be with joy and fear of the holiness, or sorry, joy and understanding or awareness of the holiness in fear and in His mercy, with intention and thought, with intention and pure thought. Sorry, uh, according to what is to be done. Like you're supposed to have the proper idea of what you're doing while you're doing this. Um, וראוי לכל ירא שמיים שקודם שישב המים שלנו לטהר עצמו במקווה טהורה, כפי הראוי לנהוג במצווה רמה ו... Alright, so he says, and it is fitting for everyone who fears heaven. It doesn't mean you have to do it, but it is. He says it's fitting, it's proper. That before they go and draw the water, they should purify themselves in a mikvah, a pure mikvah. According to the minhag of an exalted mitzvah. So like, there's a few other mitzvot that you're really supposed to dunk in a mikvah before you do them. Uh, Yom Kippur being one of them. Writing tefillin, writing a Sefer Torah. It's these very high, very spiritual things that getting married. Both the man and the woman should dunk in the mikveh before they get married. Um, uh, that we're supposed to do, or not that that look, if you don't dunk in a mikveh before you do any of those things, unless you're a lady getting married, but it's not the end of the world. um, but it's proper to do it to elevate yourself to the level to do this. So what he's saying here is that this is like, even though it seems like a very practical, and I would say in many ways, in many places, almost ignored thing today, to Mayim Shalanu, because for anybody who goes out and just buys matzah, you don't even think about where the water came from that made those matzahs. But this is actually an extremely important mitzvah. Um, and that so that when we do it, you should do it with joy and be happy about it and understand the holiness of the moment and all of that. And if you um, ever saw Amanda when she did Mayim Shalano, she always loved that mitzvah. Um, she would every year she would try to take at least one of the kids along with her when we stopped doing it as a family, um, so they could also experience the joy and importance of the mitzvah. Um, like in the picture that accompanies this video, you'll see our oldest daughter um, with her there. And so, yeah, uh, that was this. And I bring this up now because her, I'm going to connect this back into her cancer journey. Is her traveling to Ain Sataf really, the first time she did it was immediately before she got diagnosed. She already had cancer, but she hadn't been diagnosed. She would be diagnosed the during Kolomoed, and then uh, I believe the second time she went um, to Ain Sataf by herself, or not by herself, with her friend, was right when she was declared to be in remission the first time. And then the third time was right when she was diagnosed with her first recurrence. And it's every year this, just it's just a timing thing. It wasn't. I'm not linking that. She didn't get cancer because of doing Mayim Shalano or anything like that. That's not. Don't get this twisted. Um, but it became us making matzah every year. Really, for her, became a victory because it was her counting years of um, fighting cancer. And there is a saying in the cancer community that you fight for minutes and you fight for hours and you fight for days, as in we're fighting for these extra minutes, we're fighting for these extra hours, we're fighting for these extra days, these extra months, these extra years. And so she wound up seeing each year drawing water, each year making matzah as another year of victory over cancer. And it's sad a little bit um, that we are here now, uh, coming up on Pesach again, and she won't be making matzah with us this year. Um, this is the year she lost that fight. So, final thing I want to do in this tribute video for this week is read something that she wrote. Um, and this is so the story of this is that I needed something from her email, and needed two things. One was actually in her inbox, and one I knew was a draft that she had written, an email she intended to send to somebody dealing with a certain situation. Doesn't matter. So when I opened up her drafts, I found a number of drafts that she had written. Some of them are notes to me about various things. Um, Clearly, all of these were intended to be read after she was gone. Um, at least that's how I took it and took the tone of many of them. This last one was written on February 4th, which, if you know how her final days went, she went into the hospital, I think, 2 days before that. And February 4th was a Thursday, and it was the last day that she could type on her phone. Um, this just uh, I'm going to throw this out there for those of you who don't know or haven't heard this. But throughout our marriage, unless I was traveling the States and Shabbat times just got in the way, we talked to each other at least by text every day. Um, we made that a priority. And if we were both in the same country, like here in Israel, if she was in the hospital, unless she was severely incapacitated from a surgery or something like that, we would talk first thing in the morning, or we'd write back and forth like, "Hey, whatever." I'm not going to get into the private details of our morning chats. Um, and so I knew there was a problem. I knew something had gone wrong um, on Yom Shishi, on February 5th, when she didn't write to me and then she wouldn't respond, she wouldn't answer, um, either answer her phone by voice or type anything on WhatsApp. So, um, yeah, this is probably, I don't know what time this is written. I didn't really get that dive into it that far, but this is, I think at this point she probably knew that she was degrading, and she wanted to put this out there for those of us that would be around after she left. And she entitled it "Before I Go." There's so much to say, things that might get in the way. Before this time comes, I want to tell you, I am the lucky one. I can't stay as long as I'd thought, but that's harder for you, my loves. Before I go, I can't get it all done, but you too are a lucky one. Please forgive me any pain you might feel from our past. Before I go, I can't make it all right. If all you can remember is joy, I'll be a lucky one.